Hey guys, it's Paul, combat veteran, MMA fighter, YouTuber, and caffeine addict. And today we are taking a look at a much requested video. This is like white on spy. Let's get into it. Crash Maul evolving his branding every time. This is only 9 months old, by the way. Ooh, that's a cool heavy skin. I've never seen that. Is it, or maybe he's drawing from a different source, from Source Filmmaker? It's also the weird Gordon Gekko medic skin. Okay, cool. Radical. For those of you that don't know, Gordon Gekko is the character from the original movie Wall Street. He played a sort of movie-fied version of Michael Milken, the junk bond king. Just kind of a symbol of like 80s Wall Street amoral greed.
Excuse me, sir?
Have you found Bryce?
No, sir, not yet. I believe I have found the perfect recruit for our organization.
Not this again.
Sir, need I remind you that we're still one agent short ever since the death of...
I don't want to hear it! Leave.
You're right. It's really only just one guy who single-handedly took on the Cobra Gang. There's nothing to it, really. I'll just see myself out.
You're right, the Cobra Gang. And you're going to tell me he survived to tell the tale too? Come on now, you can't be serious. One man against the... Oh, you rascal.
I don't even know who the Cobra Gang is. Is this even Team Fortress 2?
Well, come on then, show it here.
Also, does Crash Maul have real voice actors for this?
He popped out of nowhere a few weeks ago. Began going after various criminals, bank robbers, murderers, you name it. But yesterday was his most ambitious hit yet. The Cobra Gang were to meet with a local street gang called the Yellows.
Oh, weird.
They were planning to exchange a mysterious weapon case for a large sum of cash.
We have nothing on this guy.
Precisely. Whoever he is, he's a real ghost. No past, no known associates, no names.
All we know is that he calls himself
The White Spy.
Okay, I just love how they're like, we don't know anything about this guy, but we're sure he exists, and we're sure we want to recruit him. It's like, okay, having no known associates and having no associates is not the same thing, right? If someone tells me that they're like no known associates, what you have is an intelligence failure, right? Everyone has a parent, right? No one can like navigate through life and be a normal person and have no known associates, right? Surely at some point, every person has to at least have been socialized, right? Maybe not as an adult, but yeah, if someone came to me and was like, no known associates, he's perfect, I'd be like, you've clearly not done a sufficient amount of homework. So I'm just gonna say overall, Crash Maul has like evolved his filmmaking by like a lot. Okay, here's the other thing that really sort of irks me a little bit, is when, and this is a movie thing, right? It's very dramatic to have characters with iconic calling cards, iconic behaviors, repetitive appearances, right? That sort of thing. I.e., you know, Batman or James Bond, for example. But the truth is that each one of those things is a liability. I.e., if you were someone who was known as the White Spy, always wore a white suit, then you could be easily detected once people know that you're the guy in the white suit. It could be as easy as just ordering everyone to wear a black outfit. and you're just the one in the white suit, right? This is, I'm going to say, the first Triple X movie sort of captured this, where they had a James Bond spy character who, wore a tuxedo everywhere, had to infiltrate a nightclub, and of course he stood out like a sore thumb because he was a 30-year-old dude in a nightclub and was promptly killed. And so, the premise was that the agency then recruited like alternative type people, and that's how Vin Diesel ended up playing the spy, right? Because he was an alternative sort of like punk rock street racer character. But it's obviously moviefied, but that's an illustration of the truth, which is if you depend on doing things a certain way, you're going to get stuck there. There's actually a viral photo going around that purports to be a snapshot of all the federal agents at a certain protest where they're literally all jacked 20 and 30 something white dudes with no facial hair and really, really short like paramilitary haircuts, and they all have Oakleys. And it's hilarious how like obviously they are federal agents trying to like blend in. Like it's pretty comical.
What the?
I appreciate their old-timey like 1930s cars. Also, again, man, Crash Maul's filmmaking is just sort of like good. Like he does a good job of like setting scenes, right? Introducing characters, building tension, even like his panning shots. Like obviously it's all in Source Filmmaker, so it all doesn't look any better than Team Fortress 2. But like the storytelling is gone a long way. Alright, we got Master Blaster here for some reason.
It's all there. My turn now.
I thought she has some sort of band t-shirt called Midnight Riders. Is that a reference that I don't get?
Deal. Weren't there more of you?
Okay, that's pretty funny.
What the hell?
Kill him.
Okay, I love greaser hat, greaser hair. Scout, you can see he's got like the Jerry, or is it called Jerry? It's like the Superman curl. It comes down like that.
Deal's off. Let's just say the screw-ups are you. Come on, guys! Get out of here!
Okay, I mean, this is why you carry spare magazines, right? Especially if you are going to be the one taking on a larger force and you're outnumbered, you shouldn't have like a tiny, 2 or 3 magazines, right? Most, for example, security guards or, police officers, right? They carry a fairly limited number of magazines for their service weapon. And that is because they're supposed to always be shooting on the defensive, right? And they're basically, the idea is that they are able to stall for time because there's always going to be reinforcements incoming, right? You can get, of course, the other officers on patrol. You can call for help from your SWAT team. That SWAT team can escalate it. It's like the GTA 5 star system, right? So the idea is that you don't need to be a one-man army because you represent the sort of like earliest point in the escalation of force available. Now, it's a different set of math if you're a one-person operation trying to take on a much larger force. You have to bring enough firepower that basically you're able to throw 7 times, the equivalent of 7 people in the case of the spy, 7 people's lead downrange.
Oh. Ooh.
Okay, that was a car from the 50s, car from the 30s, another car from, it looks like the 30s, and another car from the 50s. Maybe they're just people that love vintage. Does he have actual voice actors? I know I asked this question before, but I don't know if they're from somewhere.
Some nutjob on her tail. He's already taken 1 car out, so get over here and do your damn job!
They won't know what hit them.
Okay, I love Biker Pyro. That is awesome. Okay, see, all right, this is another illustration, right? In the real world, between 7 and 14 rounds shooting while driving is not going to achieve anything against another armed force, especially a force where you're armed and outnumbered. You can't really drive and shoot in any meaningful way. I mean, again, you sort of can, but you wouldn't be able to aim or achieve anything because you can choose between lining up your shot or lining up the road, right? You can't, stare at 2 things at once. Also, I appreciate that the saw in the seat next to him is like twice the size of a person. Physics on some of these car crashes is actually kind of realistic.
Stop hiding! Fight me, coward!
Oh,
no. Let's do this.
Okay, I appreciate all the cars, and that tank style is from the 50s, but it has night vision, which they for some reason need, despite it being daylight. So here's what's also kind of interesting. First is that tanks are not all that fast. On a road, they would get left behind pretty easily by most commercial vehicles, right? They top out at around 35 to 45 miles an hour. Of course, for a heavily armored vehicle, that is impressive, especially at the range many tanks can cover. Now, what this looks more like almost is what the South Africans in the 60s would call armored cars. And armored cars are actually the modern, or a predecessor to our modern MATVs and MRAPs. Right? These were designed by the South African Defense Forces as a sort of homegrown solution to the fact that they were a relatively small country operating in these huge open savanna and prairie-like environments of Africa. Also, it was one in which there was a lot of mining that was taking place, and usually because many of their opposition forces were backed by the Soviet Union, which didn't really have that many compunctions about dropping mines to deny whole areas. So they had all the characteristics. They basically combined a tank and a modern MRAP in the sense that they had the V-shaped hull, they had an armored cab, but unlike modern vehicles, right, that have a window and a gunner and a driver and a TC, they would usually have just a driver, and their gun would actually be a small cannon. So it would look a little bit like this tank they have here in terms of size, and in terms of crew, probably a 2 to 3 man crew, but it would have wheels, not treads. Okay, I love the recklessly emplaced middle of the road electrical pole. Okay, I think the guy he actually hit was wielding an AK-74, the so-called. It actually looked pretty small. It may have even been a Krinkov.
Come on! What's it take to kill that guy? What are you doing? Idiot! Go kill him! We're almost there. We just gotta make the mountain and we're free.
Sorry, I really want to figure out what AK this is they're wielding.
Over here!
Okay, I couldn't really see there as well. I really think it's an AK-74U. The really short barreled, they're called the Krinkovs. They were issued to helicopter and tank crew members because they were so short and compact. They were basically the Soviet Union's answer to like an individual personal defense weapon, like a submachine gun. I know I've said this in other videos, but I'm going to say it now. Most parts on a car will not stop any bullet. At best, they may fragment a bullet, right? But they won't really reduce the momentum enough to make a meaningful difference in terms of its lethality. They may scatter into fragments as they pass through, say, a door panel, but they probably won't even do that. The only place on a car that may stop a bullet is going to be the engine block, right? That's right behind the front tire.
Gotcha!
I'm just going to point this out. Running and gunning, driving and shooting is a really hard thing to do. Now, the way it becomes effective is when you have a dedicated turret, and that turret has a weapon that is mounted but free floats, right? Because you don't want it to jostle too much as the vehicle moves. But in the case of a tank, right, they can actually fix that jostling using a gyroscope. They're gyroscopically stabilized. So even as the body of the tank does this, right, basically it has these shock absorbers and a gyroscope to keep the barrel of the tank pointed true. That's why U.S. tanks, unlike or modern tanks, one of their biggest innovations over tanks of, say, the Second World War or Vietnam era was their ability to move and shoot accurately. Okay, I just want to point out I appreciate his reloads, right? I know we've seen some other videos where the reloading, the dual wielding and stuff has been unrealistic. And frankly, every time he changes magazines, it's fully realistic. If the magazine slides in, he drops the slide back into place and is ready to engage. I mean, I appreciate that all this is an homage to, like, the wild, over-the-top action sequences. I'm just going to say it once, because I overanalyze every video I see. That's the whole shtick of this channel. You would break so many bones if you got punched from car to car. Rackberth Tunnel. Exit 3 miles. Cobra's Turf. I appreciate that it just tells you that the tunnel's birth is such that you will get wrecked.
You're one ransom! Did you think you could beat me? Now we know!
Okay, that is just a fun sequence. Though, again, real silencers take a while to screw on, more than just a quarter turn. But I do appreciate the fact that they captured that Crash Maul decided to capture the fact that a long, unwieldy weapon in really close quarters is actually just that, extremely unwieldy, and can often be a liability. That's one of the things that basically for years the U.S. Army didn't really bother training in hand-to-hand combat. They felt like that training people to, fix bayonets and charge was sufficient. And it wasn't until they found soldiers clearing extremely small rooms in places like Iraq and Afghanistan that they realized that even the relatively compact M4 was too unwieldy, say when you're clearing like a closet or a really narrow hallway or a crawl space. And that oftentimes there wasn't any offset, right? You would open the closet door and there'd be an enemy, literally in your face. And so they realized they had to retrain soldiers on hand-to-hand combat. So they actually went to, this was originally the Ranger Battalion, they went to the Gracies to design a simplified curriculum based on the principles of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that would enable the Army Rangers to train in a basic hand-to-hand combat. And the appeal to the Rangers, of course, was that they could have controlled exercises where they actually, they could do sparring matches. And because there was a real-world scenario in which two people could, within a certain rule set, exert maximum effort to try to get a dominant position or defeat the other, it really enabled the Rangers to build proficiency in hand-to-hand combat in a way that the old style of just like repeating the motions on a compliant opponent never would have evolved. And there's now, of course, a couple of pretty really well-known Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt soldiers who were in Ranger Regiment at the time, the most iconic being Matt Larson. Oh yeah, those are the sights on a it's definitely an AK-74.
Now I've got you!
I don't know if that's how any of that would work. You know, I don't actually know if real tunnels in real life have emergency backup lighting. It makes sense that they would, right? You would never want to have your tunnels suddenly go completely dark as cars were passing through them in the event of a power outage. It makes sense that, like, like an aircraft, right? Battery-powered backup lights would kick on.
Boss.
Master Blast is coming for you, dog. As I've discussed in other Crash Maul videos, in fact, wounds to the hand are tough. You cannot toughen your way out of the fact that your hand is a spindly object controlled by a series of very comparatively delicate tendons. If you slice a couple, you will lose grip strength, right? So the chances that you could just be tough enough to just eat stab after stab in the hand is pretty unlikely. Okay, interestingly, that is actually not that unrealistic, right? You notice that it's the tip of the finger that's blown off, right? And because this is sort of like the end of the finger, so to speak, that it's not going to impede the other, 4 fingers from functioning. However, in the adrenaline rush of a fight, it's really common to not notice you've been injured. Extremely common, in fact, to just be like, oh man, whew, yeah, you don't realize. And in fact, when in the military, we are trained to, after a firefight, to physically pat down our battle buddies to make sure that they haven't been injured and don't realize it, right? Because it can be actually pretty dangerous if if you are bleeding a lot and you don't realize it for 10, 15 minutes. That could be a lot of blood loss, right? So it's really important that the first thing you do after a gunfight or after you hit an IED or something is that you pat down and you look over your battle buddies to make sure they are okay. Okay, I'm just going to point this out, that the Trache Crush, right, in which you are crushing a person's trachea, is actually one of the least effective ways to choke someone out, right? This method is just not that good because your target is the carotid arteries. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right, your goal is not to constrict a person's airway, but your goal is to actually constrict slightly the flow through the carotid arteries, and that will very quickly incapacitate a person. The scientific theory is that the brain has a sort of preservation mode. When it senses blood pressure starting to drop, in order to preserve brain tissue, it starts to really quick basically reduce the light switches. Sort of a sense of like, when your lights start to flicker, right, you'll turn off your blender and unplug your toaster and stuff, so that before that's not a good analogy. If your car battery is low, you will, maybe turn off the lights, turn off the blinkers, turn off the radio, so that you can just run the battery on. Just use it for the most essential components. Again, if you're driving maybe like a Tesla or something, right? Man, there's not a good analogy. Anyway, the point of this is that the brain will start to shut off some of the other sections as it feels blood pressure drop a little bit. And that's why you target those carotid arteries. Well, when you do this, you're not really, like, you're using your spindly little fingers to hit the carotid arteries. That's why in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they teach you to choke by wrapping your bicep and forearm around the neck, because you have this, like, much stronger part of your arm that's applying the pressure, right? Much more so, right? You can easily, like, squeeze a lot between your forearm and your bicep and generate a lot more force than you could with just your fingers. Is it even a cheesy action movie if there isn't a final confrontation with the big boss?
Just lay your weapon down and walk away. I'll give it a good home. Come on, I don't have all day.
You are so dead.
Okay, I'm just gonna point this out. If you ever seen some of the YouTube videos roasting fake martial artists, there's two actually classic fake martial artist moves. One is dodging bullets. Two is wacha, redirecting people who have pistols pointed at your head, right? There's an obvious physics problem where it takes this much motion to pull the trigger, whereas it takes all this motion, right, to push the barrel away from your head. The physics just don't work out, right? It's like a race in which your opponent has to cover 10 meters and you have to cover 100. You're never going to win. Unless, barring again, something where like maybe the gun is on safe or something, or like there's two motions they have to do. But again, any martial artist that tells you there's a reliable way to do that is full of crap. Also, the door would not stop a bullet. We discussed this.
Is that all you've got?
We've discussed this in other videos on my other channel. The holding a knife downward, here I'll use a pen as an example, right, is really ineffective. Look, if I want to slash you, right, where's the max distance that I can really effectively deliver a slashing blow, right? Like, let's say you are at the camera, right? So you can see there's no danger here. And in fact, I can't really deliver a slashing blow until like this point here with this big bend in my arm. Right, so you can see that's about the max distance that I can effectively slash at an opponent. In contrast, you hold the weapon like this, and look, I can touch the camera. I haven't moved my feet, but I've gained almost a foot, really, of lethality. And in a fight with someone else who also has a knife, right, that can be a decisive difference. Though, I'm going to point this out, that again, fake martial artists will love to tell you about how to wacha, secret knife technique that will allow you to obliterate your opponent. The saying is that that the loser of a knife fight dies in the street and the winner of a knife fight dies in the hospital. It's super lethal, and even if you survive and win, you will have permanent crippling damage. Also, reliably throwing knives, not really all that possible. Again, it's easy when you have a known target distance because you can time the rotations the knife needs to hit. But if you don't really know the distance of your target, barring some sort of super expert, right, you're never going to be able to reliably time that knife's rotation. Again, your opponent can thwart it by literally moving in any direction, forward or backward. The Joe Rogan is fear of having your tie become a liability. Fun fact, as a you can 100% bleed to death from a cut down there. good judo throw there. Oh man, that was nice. See, I mean, again, I've never ever seen it done one-handed while the weapon is still in someone's hand. That's a good way to get hurt. But dropping the magazine and then racking the slide to clear the chamber is exactly how you would actually ensure that weapon can't hurt you. Dropping the magazine, as you might recall, doesn't actually clear the chamber.
Thank you.
Oh!
The hell was that? What an idiot!
A very, very lucky idiot.
But I'm afraid you're fresh out of luck now.
Okay, I appreciate that other movie move where the final villain can't get killed by the hero. They have to get killed by their own hubris. I think there's also something weird where, like, even though movies will kill adult men, like, wholesale, they have this weird thing about killing, like, named women.
I said, you're fresh now.
Again, shoulder joint. Discussed this in other videos. Getting shot there. A lot of moving parts. And if you got shot in the shoulder, you would probably have permanent range of motion and probably permanent nerve damage. There's also, if you have a heart, right, they say when you have a heart attack that you get a lot of pain in your shoulder. And that's because there's a huge artery that runs through there. And that's one of the things that people forget, is that if you nick an artery, even internally, you are going to bleed out relatively quickly. Potentially very quickly, depending on how bad the artery's been cut or severed. So, getting shot in the shoulder, while a classic movie move, is not actually that safe. Okay, just gonna point this out. This is a classic thing that you're trained in the military, is that the first thing you do after a fight is secure the scene, right? You have to check to make sure everyone who you think is dead is really dead and they're not just playing dead. Or in the case of her, right, she has a weapon in her hand. You want to at least make sure that all the bodies are free of weapons and that there's no other weapons or explosives or traps in the area that can still hurt you.
So, he got Cobra arrested.
Yes, sir. When the police arrived on the scene, they found her unconscious and took her into custody. Both the weapon case and money were gone, and we lost the White Spice trace shortly thereafter. Like I said, a real ghost.
Well, he certainly seems to hold his own in a fight. Do we know what was in that case?
No, sir. As far as we can tell, Cobra and the White Spy himself are the only people left alive who would know for sure.
Well,
that also doesn't make any sense, right? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, for a thing to have value, it must be known. Does that make sense? Like, if it's, let's say it's jewels or art or a million Rolexes, right? It must be a known quantity. You have to be able to verify that it's jewels, art, a Rolex, real dollars, right? If it's something like a weapon or uranium, it must be designed, refined, and it must be vetted, tested, right? How would you know if you want to buy, again, pick your thing, it has to be certified as being true. And the only way to do that is, of course, to have a third party involved.
I guess we can just ask him in person.
Does that mean you...
You're right. He would be a great asset. And someone who knows how to disappear like that could help us locate Bryce.
And here I was thinking I'd managed to take your mind off of him.
Think you can get in touch and convince him to enlist?
I'll see what I can do, sir.
Good. Now get out of my sight.
Yes, sir.
You hear that, Bryce?
Oh, Matthew Bryce, aka Epic Scout. Major nuisance. Capture alive to be extensively tortured and executed.
Soon there will be nowhere for you to hide. We will find you, and I will personally make you suffer for what you did to Agent 35.
Ah.
That is a promise.
Oh, okay, they did have a voice acting cast. Also, man, shout out to this outro. This is pretty sick. The spy driving on the road. Okay, they got a real voice actor to play it. Farins. Oh, Crash Maul played that guy. Oh, interesting. Okay, we've heard the real Crash Maul. That's actually pretty cool. Silent part. Harry made Okay, guys. Let's see. Let's just see if there's anything else. Huge thanks all third-party assets. Okay. Wow, guys, that was actually legitimately some great filmmaking. I wonder if is Crash Maul like a professional? Does he work professionally in film? Because it seems like he has such a strong, like confident and well put together creative vision. Again, he's using Source Filmmaker, so it's not the technical masterpiece that it could be, but it's pretty fascinating to see what he can do with it. That said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Of course, if you want to support the channel, you can always become a member. Members are they get access to exclusive rooms on the Discord, which of course anyone can join. The link is in the description. But members get the exclusive Discord rooms. They get priority access to join the party on stream when I play Team Fortress 2, and they get to submit and vote on my Friday reaction video. Also, of course, be sure to join the Discord, and that's free and the #1 place where I am always hanging out. And of course, be sure to check out the merch store, right? Always have lots of good merch for sale. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.